Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
For the subsequent 2 weeks, all of UA was hyped up for the upcoming sports festival. Lessons were relaxed somewhat to allow the participating students to use the training grounds and facilities to hone their skills in preparation. Akatani made full use of these 2 weeks to get Kaminari and himself ready for what awaits them when the whole world turns their eyes on them. Sure, 2 weeks was not nearly enough for a beginner like Kaminari, but that was what they were given, and Akatani was going to make use of what they had. Their meetings at Dagoba Beach became almost daily. Akatani furthered his teachings from just the basics of offense and defense, to include stealth and surprise attacks. While he didn't know the quirks of everyone outside of 1A, Akatani was certain that there would be at least one student who had resistance to or immune against electrical attacks. If Kaminari were to go up against someone like that, he needed all the advantage he could use to level the battlefield. Training aside, there was also something else Akatani had to do in preparation for the sports festival. 1 week to the date, Aizawa pulled him aside during homeroom with some unexpected news. Akatani-kun, as you came in first place during the entrance exam, you are expected to open the sports festival with a speech. The student's eyebrows raised minutely. I suggest you choose your words carefully. Everyone will be listening to what you say, and as the saying goes, first impressions matter. You could make or break your chances of getting scouted even before the events begin. That's all I need to say, you can go back to class. Akatani schooled his expression into a neutral one, I understand. Thank you, Aizawa-sensei. Inside, he was tad nervous. With an extra duty thrown into the mix, Akatani tried his best to adapt. Any spare time between training Kaminari and the necessary continuation of school was spent planning out his opening speech. He quickly found out that writing a speech was, as many would say, frustrating. It had the whole shebang. Awkward phrasing, pointless segues, inappropriate choice of words, confusing turnarounds, etc. Akatani spent the next 6 days and nights going through at least 50 drafts, before giving up and deciding he needed his sleep to be ready for the big event the following day. Several minutes passed as the teen lay completely still in his bed, eyes closed. Then, out of nowhere, Akatani rose up off the mattress, bending at the waist, like a vampire. His eyes fluttered open, glowing irises staring into the darkness. You know what, fuck it. I'm totally winging my speech tomorrow. Akatani flopped back down onto his bed, eyes closing, and went back to sleep. The morning of the sports festival dawned upon the world. Akatani prepared to face his next destiny, Inko by his side. You've got this, Mikumo, the older woman said determinedly, show them what you're made of. Thanks, Mom, Akatani grinned, be sure to catch it on TV. I will, you do your best. Mother and son shared a hug. Pulling away, Akatani nodded, before bidding her farewell, and stepping out through the door. Already, as Akatani made the journey to school, the excitement for the day's events was evident wherever he looked. The sports festival was the single most heard topic of conversation on the street, the station, and on the train. Some attention was drawn to him, naturally, but he simply ignored the whispers. As per usual, he met up with Kaminari at UA station, and the two friends headed off together towards campus. This time, a right hubbub of activity was taking place. The road running parallel to the gates were lined with trucks. People were unloading materials, signboards, boxes, crates, among other things. Others were at work unwrapping and setting up makeshift shops along the pathway towards the main doors. Man, there's definitely going to be crowd later. Kaminari remarked. Akatani grunted, are your family coming down to support you? Nah, the blonde shook his head, they did try though, but seating tickets for the sports festival snap up real fast, you know? What about you? My mom's watching from home. I see. The conversation moved on to other topics, as they made their way towards the locker room to get changed. The sports festival only permitted the students to wear the school's gym uniform to ensure everyone was on equal standing with no advantages from their hero costumes. Once done, the two friends made their way towards the class's allocated waiting room until it was time for them to appear in the stadium. Entering the room, the heads of the classmates who had already gathered looked turned towards them. Good mornings were exchanged, before everyone returned to their business. Akatani and Kaminari grabbed seats at a table where Mina and Jairu were sitting and chatting. 15 minutes passed. The door opened, and Yayorozu stepped in. Everyone. We'll be heading out now, so get ready. On her call, everyone stood up. As a class, they trooped out of the waiting room into the hallway. A right turn here, and left turn there, and finally, straight towards the light and the growing sounds of the world outside. Akatani and Yayorozu were the first to step out into the light, leading their class into the stadium. The cheers and shouts of the hundreds of thousands of spectators gathered across 3 levels was almost deafening, drummed up by the excited voice of President Mike announcing their entry. To the side, Akatani noticed a small section where the press was allocated, cameras rolling and flashing. Around the stadium, the students from the other classes trooped out of other entrances, and together, everyone gathered in the center of the field in front of a raised platform with a single microphone on it. The R-rated heroine, Midnight, stepped up towards the microphone. She whipped what appeared to be a cat o' nine tails into the air. Now is the time for the opening speech. All across the stands, Akatani observed many of the male spectators unabashedly staring at Midnight's curves and ample bosom. Goofy grins, drooling, dilated eyes, blushes, all signs of lechery was displayed for everyone to see. Akatani inwardly grimaced at such disgusting behavior. I find it inappropriate for the R-rated heroine to be here amongst hormone-crazed high schoolers and people who obviously can't keep it in their pants, Tokoyami remarked. My thoughts exactly, Akatani agreed silently. Put your hands together for the first place holder of the UA entrance exam, from Class 1A, Akatani Makumo. Cheers, applause and whoops filled the air. Kaminari squeezed his friend's shoulder, whispering, "You've got this." Akatani nodded, moving away from his peers and joining Midnight up on the raised stage. Waiting for all the noise to cease, he stepped towards the microphone. A very good morning to everyone here today, family, friends, staff, strangers, all of you. It is an honor to be chosen to open this year's sports festival for first years. Round of applause. Akatani waited for it to stop. This year's sports festival is just as much about showing off our very best, as is the message it was intended to show the world. He took a moment to pause. That UA will not be cowed by those who wish to do us harm. Immediately, the mood shifted from neutrally formal to serious. Just 2 weeks ago, my classmates and I were attacked by the so-called League of Villains at the USJ facility. It was an invasion like never before, hundreds of villains and thugs, petty criminals, all led by this insane manchild. Our lives hung by the threads, not helped by a certain classmate of ours who till this day doesn't understand the concept of restraint. Akatani ignored Bakugo angrily struggling in Kirishima's grip. 2 of our teachers were seriously injured. And not to be cocky or anything, but had I not intervened, one of them would have died that day. But most thankfully, they have made a full recovery, and the one I saved is sitting in the commentator's box, wrapped in bandages like an ancient Egyptian mummy. Smattering of chuckles and claps. Though to be honest, even without the bandages, he still looks like a corpse that had just given up on the unbearable load that is life. Much louder laughter reverberated throughout the stadium. The students on the field were either staring at Akatani in disbelief or trying desperately to hold in their laughs. Midnight too was struggling to keep herself from losing it, though President Mike had no such qualms, his amplified guffaws joining in at the expense of Class 1A's homeroom teacher. Said teacher's voice echoed down, "Get on with it, Akatani, before I assign you detention, or so help me, expel you." Duly noted, Aizawa-sensei, the teen replied, "Oh, by the way, did you make the eye holes in your bandages as I advised? Will you continue if I said yes?" "I have every intention of doing so." "Then yes, I have. I can confirm that, little listener." President Mike added. "Great, thanks, Aizawa-sensei, Yamada-sensei," Akatani gave a thumbs up. Now where was I? Oh yeah, the serious stuff. Another round of chuckles. By the grace of all that was holy, we emerged from the debacle relatively unscathed, but the damage had already been done beyond the physical destruction. The mood shifted again back to solemn. If the League was able to infiltrate into one of Japan's most secure locations, it can only be said about their capabilities to do great harm to anywhere and anyone. It would have casted doubt on UA's reputation as the safest hero school in the country. There was no need for words to echo the agreement to Akatani's statement. This year's sports festival is our counterstrike. To show our enemies that we will not be cowed. To show the world that we are still the #1 school where the heroes of tomorrow are made. String of applause and cheers sweep through the stadium. And that brings things to us, the students, Akatani continued, gazing towards his peers. Our abilities have brought us into UA, and it is our abilities which will allow us to become the heroes this society needs. However, we must not forget that we are extremely blessed to have been given the chance to do immense good for the people of this land, something I feel is easily taken for granted. It is the dream of many to enroll into UA to become heroes, but reality crushes the dream for the vast majority of those with weak quirks, dangerous or villainous quirks, useless quirks, or, Akatani's breath hitched, those with no quirk. He took a moment to compose himself. These people are beaten down by society, simply because of who they are. Very often, they have no choice but to turn to villainy or a life of crime just to get by every day. Our responsibility as future heroes is to be there for these people, to give them one reason to smile. Through hardship, to live on to see the next day. That is what it means to be a true hero. Although. Here, Akatani pointedly looked towards Bakugu. There are a few rotten shitebags who have deprived someone who was more worthy to be in this institution, and I may or may not be referring to that classmate of mine who has no restraint from earlier and a pervert with grapes for hair. Akatani again ignored Bakugu struggling to get at him amidst more chuckles, but for everyone else, today is our next step towards becoming full-fledged heroes. Just as we have proven that we are deserving of a place in UA, today is the day we prove that we are deserving of becoming heroes. So, to open this year's sports festival, I only have this to say. The team shot a clenched fist into the air, go beyond your best, and plus ultra. Deafening roar of applause ricocheted from the stadium. The masses got to their feet, giving Akatani a standing ovation. His peers were punching their own fists into the air, pumped up by his rousing words, singing his praises. Hoo boy! What a speech, I'd say. We have a little orator here, just like All Might. President Mike gushed, give it up for Akatani Makumo. Please don't compare me to that son of a bitch, Akatani inwardly grimaced as he stepped down from the stage and returned to his original spot amongst his peers. That was awesome, man, Kaminari said, real cool you were up there. Thanks. Alrighty then. President Mike interjected over the din, now with that done, take it away, Midnight. Indeed, the R-rated heroine flashed a bright smile, it is time for the first round. Behind her, a screen popped up from somewhere. Every student's eyes were on the spinning jackpot slot in anticipation. Few tense seconds later, it stopped. Which is, obstacle race. The screen shifted. All 11 classes will be taking part in this round, Midnight explained, you will run a 4-kilometer course around the stadium. And since UA is all about freedom, as long as you stay on the course, you are free to do whatever it takes to reach the finish line. Quirks, no quirks, it doesn't matter. Only the top 42 will advance to the next round though, so do whatever it takes to secure your place. Across from the students, a set of giant metallic doors parted with a rumble, opening up the way into the course. Akatani grabbed Kaminari's hand. Let's go. Ah. Right. Following their lead, the students rushed towards the doors. Make sure you stay behind the line, children. Midnight called out, otherwise, you'll be disqualified. Akatani and Kaminari reached the line first, the rest of their peers crowding around them. There is some pushing and shoving, as many fought to reach the front. Akatani clicked his tongue disapprovingly as he felt someone push against him, almost sending him over. Gosh, I wonder what are the obstacles gonna be like? Kaminari wondered. Akatani looked around. The gateway was quite narrow, now that he looked closely, packing the students quite tightly together. Naturally, when the race begins, there would be a huge bottleneck when all the students get in each other's way. And knowing a few of his classmates, they were going to use their quirks to halt everyone else in their tracks, giving them the advantage of a head start. 30 seconds to flag off. Midnight announced behind them. Kaminari. Akatani snaked his arm across his friend, and in one fell swoop, Kaminari was lifted up in a bridal carry. Akatani, a blush flashed over the blonde's face. Do you trust me? What? Do you trust me? Akatani repeated, staring dead ahead. Yes, but why? 10 seconds to flag off. Just hold on tight. Kaminari, however unsatisfied and rather unsettled by the vague response from his friend, wrapped his arms around Akatani's neck. If what he was thinking was about to happen, then he'd better hold on for dear life. Above them, a series of lights turned off one by one, counting down the last seconds. The last light flickered off, and Midnight swung her cat-o'-nine-tails down. Flag off. To Kaminari, everything seemed to slow down. First, he registered the surge of bodies as everyone started at the same time. He then heard the first crackling of ice from Todoroki. Finally, he heard Akatani's electricity come to life. Split second later, there was a loud crack, the sound of others getting electrocuted, and everything sped up again. Even in his friend's arms, Kaminari felt the rush of the wind as the ground fell away beneath them. It didn't take much for the blonde to realize that they were airborne. He had only seen Akatani fly once, during the entrance exam. But never in his life has he experienced the flight firsthand. So, he did the one thing anyone new to this would do in such a situation. Kaminari, calm down. How can I calm down? Oh god, this is so cool but so scary. Please don't drop me, Aoha, I'm gonna wet myself. Kaminari. Meanwhile, President Mike was having a field day back in the commentator's box. Holy cow! Akatani-kun from 1A is pulling off all the stops here, people. He's flying. You saw him fly during the entrance exam, Yamada, Aizawa reminded tonelessly, this is nothing new. But it's still exciting nonetheless. President Mike retorted. Everything to you is exciting, Aizawa shot back. The loud-voiced hero ignored his co-commentator, and am I seeing this correctly? He's actually carrying a student in his arms. Aizawa, is he one of yours? Yes, it's Kaminari. Wasn't he also the one Akatani saved during the entrance exam? Yes. Gosh. I'd never expected them to become so close. And they seem to be conversing. Let's listen in, everyone. The giant screens zeroed in on the two friends started producing audio, catching the moment when Akatani interrupted Kaminari's screams. Kaminari, calm down. How can I calm down? Oh god, this is so cool but so scary. Please don't drop me, Aoha, I'm gonna wet myself. Few chuckles from the audience. Kaminari. What happened next would silence everyone watching. Back with the flying duo, Akatani decided it was now time for his friend to stop panicking. He pulled Kaminari close, cutting off the frantic gibberish. Leaning down, he nuzzled his cheek against his friend's cheek. As a blush raced across the blonde's face, Akatani leaned towards his friend's ear. I will never drop you. You mean so much to me. We'll get through this together, okay? Speechless for a second, Kaminari mustered a quiet okay. Tightening his hold on his friend's neck, he released a deep, shaky breath in an attempt to calm his nerves. Back at the stadium, that little moment was broadcasted live for everyone to watch and hear. Even if Akatani had only intended to whisper his words, it was still loud enough to be caught in real time. President Mike was speechless, echoing the state of the spectators. Well, that was something, Aizawa remarked like it was nothing. Damn, I didn't know they were that close. Mike finally found his tongue. Don't curse, there are children watching, Aizawa snapped, and frankly, I don't give a shite about my students' relationships. Hypocrite! Mike cried, you just cursed yourself. The mummified teacher sighed, the second obstacle should be coming up now. Ah! That's right. Get ready, listeners, for next challenge is up ahead. Kaminari looked straight ahead, and his face paled. Akatani? We've got company. The purple-haired teen followed his friend's line of sight, and his eyebrows furrowed. Looming ahead were the fucking robots from the entrance exam. Only this time, there was more than one zero-pointer robot among the wall of these mechanical harbingers of death blocking their path. Hold on tight, Kaminari. This is going to be one hell of a roller coaster ride. With his friend bracing himself, Akatani zoomed ahead straight into the first wave of robots. The robotic onslaught began immediately. Several with propellers charged straight for the incoming duo. Akatani deftly dodged the flying machines, swooping up and down and swerving around them and occasionally kicking away the one that got too close to Kaminari, usually ending in the offending robot colliding with another robot and exploding into pieces. Akatani! Look out! Zero-pointer robot now took its turn, reaching out towards them in a manner that made Kaminari flash back to his near-death experience at the entrance exam. Akatani removed his right hand from carrying his friend. Raising it, he willed his electricity to coalesce into blade with immense voltage. Waiting for the right moment, he threw it like a javelin straight towards the zero-pointer's metallic hand. The crackling blade phased into the robot's mechanical system, overriding all function with destructive results. The explosion started at the hand, traveling up the arm. Before all in one go, the zero-pointer spontaneously combusted and exploded into flaming shrapnel. The pieces, some as being as houses, hurtled in all directions, hitting other robots, smashing into the ground below, and for the other students who managed to get around Todoroki's ice trap at the beginning of the race, becoming terrifying projectiles that they had to dodge or destroy to protect themselves. The shockwave that followed the explosion threw Akatani off-kilter as he flew away from the scene. Kaminari yelped as they lost altitude momentarily. Don't worry, I've got you. That was too intense, man. Let's go before they come after us. Absolutely. Back at the stadium, President Mick's excitement had gone up several notches. You're not seeing things, dear listeners. That is the godlike power of Akatani Mikumo you're currently witnessing. Believe it or not, that was how he came out first in the entrance exam, by blowing up that giant, hulking robot with nothing but electricity. Yamada, don't go spilling school secrets to the world, Aizawa interrupted. Oh come on Shoyuta, the loud-voiced hero whined, it's not really a secret when pretty much everyone describes the UA entrance exam as fighting giant robots. The forever exhausted, mummified man sighed, well anyway, given what the next two obstacles are, I think this round's winners are already clear-cut. Absolutely. Mike agreed, in the meantime, let's check in on how everyone else is doing. Hey Akatani? I saw the robot explode. Do you think we've accidentally hurt the others back there? I don't think so. And besides, they are more than capable of protecting themselves. That's true. The pair flew in silence for a moment. How are you coping with this, Kaminari? It's still surreal, if you ask me. The blonde remarked, carefully glancing down at the track about 100 feet below them. The height is still a bit dizzying, but I think I've gotten over the initial scariness. That's great to hear. They continued flying onwards. I think that's the second obstacle up ahead. What is it, though? They found out soon enough. Oh wow, Kaminari breathed. An immense canyon, with plateaus of varying heights separated by a sheer drop between them, all connected by rope, appeared before the pair. As they flew over it, Kaminari glanced down. He couldn't even see the bottom of the chasm. I can't imagine it'd be easy for those who are afraid of heights, he remarked. Seconded, Akatani agreed, thank goodness for electric flight, eh? Ah yes, one of life's many small mercies. Crossing the canyon with ease, they carried down the track. A few moments later, the third obstacle came into sight. Cutting through a section of trees was a patch of barren earth about a football field in length. That's it? Just dirt? Kaminari asked disbelievingly. They came to a stop over the field. I don't think so, Akatani refuted. I think there's something hidden out of sight here. Shifting one of his hands free, the purple-haired teen willed a sphere of electricity into his palm, releasing it down towards the field of earth. The sphere hit the soil, then... boom! Kaminari shrieked, clutching his friend's neck tighter at the unexpected blast. Akatani quickly pulled his hand back to keep the blonde securely in his grip. Cloud of smoke and dust hovered under them as the loud sound faded away. A minefield, Akatani realized as the cloud slowly dissipated. And really well camouflaged, Kaminari added, taking deep breaths to counter the shock. They took a moment to regain their composures. Let's just go. Agreed. Leaving the mines behind for their peers to worry, they flew through the last stretch of track, the stadium coming into view and growing larger as they approached. Akatani flew lower as the finishing gateway rapidly approached. The pair shot into dimness as they entered the corridor, the sounds of the crowd growing louder as they flew towards the light at the end. This is it, listeners. Our winners are coming through. The flying pair burst into the light, and the uproarious cheers of the spectators. Akatani Makumo and Kaminari Denki from Class 1A. The roar almost blew the roof clean off. People were on their feet, cheering for the victors. Akatani decided to let loose a little and do a victory lap around the stadium. Kaminari waved to the masses like an excited child. Victory lap over, Akatani descended down to the field. Once on the ground, he slowly helped Kaminari to his feet. How was the flight? Real crazy, man. Kaminari exclaimed, but fun nonetheless. Maybe we can do it again? Not right now, I need to rest, Akatani replied, looking around. So, what now? Kaminari looked up towards the screens broadcasting the progress of his peers. The others are only just finishing the canyon. Todoroki's first at the minefield. That'll take them a while, Akatani remarked. Yeah, Kaminari nodded, so... Both friends turned to one another. The crowds, having come down from their cheering high, awaited their next decision. How about cloud gazing, the blonde suggested. Why not? Much to the bemusement of the spectators and watching staff, the two friends got down to the ground and laid back. For several minutes, they were still, pointing up towards the sky and making up descriptions of clouds as they went. That one looks like Kirishima's head. No, I think it looks more like Bakuho. The shape is more roundish, like a dandelion. No one quite knew how to react, the pair just nonchalantly chilling on the field, while the rest of their peers picked their way through the minefield. Well, this is awkward, President Mike cut the silence. Akatani glanced at the commentator's box with a raised eyebrow. Is there something you want us to do? No? Then until the others arrive, enjoy the winners of the first round, make fun of our classmates through cloud formations. On that note of finality, the two friends went back to cloud gazing, ignoring the return of the awkward silence that befell the stadium. Several minutes passed, and finally, did some much-needed action take place. Oh! Get ready, listeners! The rest of the competitors are now entering the stadium. The audience clapped, but the noise seemed more stilted than when Akatani and Kaminari clinched the victory. Todoroki was the first to dash into the field, followed closely by Bakugo. The rest of the students came running in moments after. Many were out of breath, some barely standing and others on their hands and knees, clutching their still racing hearts. Todoroki was breathing hard, but didn't look worse for the wear. Bakugo was stewing too much to feel tired, frustrated and angry at Akatani, and by extension, Kaminari, for stealing the victory by doing almost nothing. Akatani, knowingly, made the situation worse by making eye contact with the explosive blonde, and huffing condescendingly at him. Bakugo growled, but by some miracle, held himself back from outright attacking Akatani. It wouldn't do him any good to make a fool of himself in front of the entire country, after all. And that's it, dear listeners. Present Mick's voice cut through the stadium. The top 42 contenders have been listed. For those of you who didn't make it, no worries. There's always next time. Now then, take it away, Midnight. Thanks, Mike. The R-rated hero stepped up to the raised stage from earlier. We're far from done, children. The obstacle course is only just the beginning. Things are only just getting started. The same screen appeared behind her, another spinning slot coming into display, and now, the second round is. The slot stopped. Cavalry battle. All ears were on Midnight now. All of you remaining 42 will be given a headband with a corresponding number of points. The higher your placing, the more points you bear, starting from 5 at the bottom, and adding 5 points with each higher placing. You will form teams of 4, in horse configuration. How this round works is that you must protect your own headbands, while trying to get more from other teams. Only the top 4 teams will make it to the final round. So be sure to grab as many headbands as you can. Akatani could feel the air of determination settle among his peers. Also, I should also point out the points value of the first place contender. And since there are 2, this just drives the stakes even higher, for the points value for Akatani and Kaminari are. Everyone held their breath. 10 million each. You could have heard a pin drop. That's right. Midnight continued, that means if you manage to grab either one or both of their headbands, you are almost guaranteed the top spot. Kaminari broke into a panicked sweat, shivering under the hungry gazes of their peers. Akatani calmly released the breath he was holding, seemingly undeterred that he and his friend were now meat chops for starving lions. But inwardly though, a single thought flashed through his mind. Fuck my life, because this is going to be one hell of a shite show. Fuck my life, because this is going to be one hell of a shite show. Akatani, in his lament against his existence, almost didn't hear Midnight's next set of instructions. You have exactly 5 minutes to form your teams. Beginning, now. There was a surge of movement as the remaining students scoped out friends and acquaintances to form teams. All of them quite pointedly avoided Akatani and Kaminari, something the former did not fail to notice. Of course, no one wants to team up with the condemned, he thought cynically. We're sticking together, right? Kaminari asked nervously. The purple-haired teen grabbed his friend's hand and gave it a squeeze. Of fucking course we are. Kaminari may have been relieved for that short moment, but that didn't solve the problem that they were still 2 persons short of a team. Yo! 20 million points. Until someone came bouncing right up towards them. And you are? Asked Akatani with a raised eyebrow. Hatsum May, support class 1H, at your service, the girl, with pink shoulder-length hair and steampunk-like goggles bowed to the pair. You two are the ticket to number 1, so I'm gonna grab it by joining your team. Akatani remained unfazed, and how are you going to help us? With my babies, of course, came the undeterred reply. Kaminari started at this, your bee-babies? Yep. Hatsum nodded, oblivious to the blonde's horrified face, like this one. The eccentric support student tapped her boot-clad foot on the ground. What does it do? Asked Akatani, ignoring Kaminari's sigh of relief. These boots allow me to take great leaps into the air over a distance of 10 meters at a height of about 5 meters. All designed by yours truly. Akatani rubbed his chin, thinking deeply. He glanced back at Hatsum. All right, you're with us. Yash. Thanks a lot, Mr. 10 million points. Don't you want to know our names? Kaminari quipped. Not important now. After we win this round, then we'll take names. Hatsum grinned. Akatani just let that slide. They needed a fourth member now. He glanced to his right. A certain bird-headed classmate of his was off to the side, being rejected by Shuji, who already had a full team of 4. Akatani waited for the right moment, and went in for the hall. Tokoyami. The bird-headed student turned to face him. What is it, Akatani? We need one more member for our team. Will you join us? Tokoyami eyed Hatsum and Kaminari, both waving back. He turned back to his class vice president. Your aura has a certain dark feel right now, like you have a plan for this incoming banquet of madness. It would be foolish of me not to join the safe side from the coming chaos. Akatani nodded. Welcome aboard, Tokoyami. Midnight's voice suddenly cut above everything. Time's up. Hopefully you lot should be in teams now. The headbands will now be distributed, and the next 10 minutes will be dedicated to planning your moves. Get to it. On cue, a set of robots hovered into the field, each holding 4 sets of headbands. One robot came up to Akatani's team with their headbands. As the 4 members tied their headbands on, Kaminari turned to his friend. What's the plan? First, formation, Akatani replied softly, urging his team close. Kaminari, you'll be the rider. Tokoyami, you are the head of the horse. Hatsum and I will be the support, since she has her long jump boots and I have my electric flight. But Akatani, have you tried flying with 3 other people before? Asked Kaminari worriedly, and you used up quite a bit of your electricity reserves during the obstacle race. You haven't been able to replenish your supply yet. I know, which cuts short a would-be advantage of just remaining airborne throughout the entire duration, Akatani conceded. That's why I can only use it in short bursts like Hatsum's boots. Our strategy will depend on us having quick reflexes and using feint attacks, not just in avoiding the others, but in grabbing their headbands. We should also include long-range, sweeping attacks. Tokoyami, how well can Dark Shadow spread his range with the current light exposure? Dark Shadow can probably cover a third of the field at the most with the current lighting, the bird-headed student replied. Good enough, Akatani nodded. We will also need to take the others off guard with distractions. Hatsum, anything to offer? Sure do, she replied excitedly. When using my baby here, I'll kick up a cloud of dust with each jump on this type of terrain. Also, the heels have little vents, which release black smoke, since the propulsion requires a fuel source that is combustible. Right, so to recap, listen to one another, use sweeping attacks and distractions, and always be vigilant. Everyone got that? Yes. Then let's do this shite. 10 minutes passed by in a blink of an eye. The teams dotted themselves around the perimeter of the field, waiting for midnight start-off, eyeing one another with a palpable determination to slaughter the competition and emerge victorious. Akatani calmly analyzed the other teams. He spotted Todoroki eyeing him with equally little emotion. Some distance away, Bakugo was glaring at his team as if they had just insulted his mother, though to be fair, he did insult her on the first day of school. The air was tense, from the field to the stands. Everyone was anxious for the moment that chaos would reign supreme. Midnight, wholeheartedly reveling in the thick antsiness, raised her cat o' nine tails, every team for themselves. In 3, 2. Team Akatani readied themselves. 1. Begin. Like a great wave rushing inland, the teams broke into a sprint, all converging towards Akatani and his allies. They're coming! Kaminari cried. Get ready, Akatani replied. Electricity crackled down to his leg. Raising it, he slammed the appendage onto the field, dispelling the jade bolts in a shockwave that rippled outwards in all directions. Those rushing towards them were instantly electrocuted by the powerful voltage. Only those teams who hadn't joined in the mad rush for the 20 million points were spared. Tokoyami, now. Dark Shadow was released. As teams struggled to maintain their formations or just fell apart completely, the shadowy quirk swooped through the convulsing students, plucking headbands one after another. Team Akatani is just picking off the competition without even moving a muscle. Present mixed commentary came over the air. Is victory in the bag for them so early on? Akatani grimaced. Yamada-sensei, why do you have to go and jinx things for us? Indeed, loud explosions rocked the field, signaling Team Bakugo was on the move, heading straight towards them. Everyone, brace yourselves. We're going airborne, Akatani instructed. Hatsum, prepare the smoke. Gotcha. Bakugo's palms were exploding as his team rapidly approached. Fucking bastards. Die. Now. The quartet were enveloped in a shining light, crackling with electric bolts, with the sound of Hatsum's boots whirring to life. One loud crack, and they were in the air, just as Kirishima got within an arm's length from Tokoyami. Say hello to my baby. Hatsum pressed a button on her boots, releasing clouds of black smoke that swarmed over Team Bakugo like a dense fog. Coughing, spluttering, and swearing courtesy of the explosive Pomeranian immediately followed. Hatsum took advantage of the distraction to nab Siro's headband just as they flew past them. Shit. My cough headband. You fucking cough idiots. Get them. That plan was derailed quite quickly when another team accosted them from the smoke. Bakugo's headband was torn off his head, followed by a condescending laugh. You know, I've always thought that Class 1A are just a bunch of entitled brats, the writer, a boy with slick blonde hair and bluish-purple eyes sneered, and getting attacked by villains? As if that means anything but fodder for your ego. Although, it must be disheartening to always be the victim, am I right? With a parting laugh, the blonde and his team dashed off. Bakugo literally exploded. Fucking hell. Shitty hair, forget the purple dumbfuck, we're going to kill that motherfucker. Right. Team Bakugo sped off. Some distance away, Team Akatani had just engaged Team Shuji. They managed to steal Mineta's headband. Kaminari grimaced at having to touch the contaminated thing, quickly passing it to Dark Shadow and vowing to wash his hands thoroughly once this was over, and apply hand sanitizer on top of that, but unfortunately losing a low-point headband as they made their escape. No big loss. They still had their 20 million points. Akatani, came an emotionless voice that was not from either one of them. Right at that moment, Akatani and team cursed the author for jinxing them again. Team Todoroki was rapidly gaining on them. You've held out so far, but I'm afraid I'm going to take the 20 million points now. You shouldn't have broadcasted that, you candy cane, Akatani sighed. Go on the defensive, he ordered externally. Dark Shadow, intercept them. Letting out a screech, the shadowy quirk blocked Team Todoroki in their advance. They retreated, dodging the quirk's attempts to steal their headbands. Ida, do it now, said Todoroki. Right. As Tokoyami pulled Dark Shadow back, Akatani noticed Team Todoroki's latest move. Recipro Burst. Powered by Ida's engine legs, the team was racing towards them at lightning speed. There was no time to do a full retreat. Everyone, pull back. Everything seemed to suddenly slow down. Team Akatani pulled away, while Todoroki reached forward, trying to nab Kaminari's headband. The electric blonde shrieked, instinctively pulling his electricity into his hand and throwing it like a ball at his dual-quirk classmate. Todoroki was thrown backwards by the electric shock. He lost control of both his quirks, ice and fire erupting briefly. The inertia from the sudden movement disrupted the team's formation. Ida, who was still in motion, lurched forward. Uraraka and Yaoyorozu, who had been the supports, stumbled backwards with Todoroki. Everything fell apart in an instant. Taking advantage of the quick distraction, Team Akatani skedaddled away as far as possible. That was too close. Kaminari gripped his heart. Too close, you hear me? What a rush! Tokoyami remarked. But that was fun. Hatsum piped in. We're not done yet, Akatani interrupted. Team Bakugo was coming for them again. Team Todoroki, having managed to reform in record time, charged at them from the opposite direction. "Let's end this," Akatani continued. "Everyone, hold on tight. Hatsum, get ready. We're taking flight in 3. Todoroki's eyes narrowed in determination. 2. Bakugo screamed bloody murder, arms raised with explosions going off rapidly. 1. Both incoming teams came within an arm's length of Team Akatani. Now. Flash of light and a whir of boots. 1 second they were there, and the next, they were not. The realization came far too late for Team Todoroki and Bakugo. There was no time to pull the brakes on the inevitable train wreck that was to follow. 5 meters away, Team Akatani touched down, just as the collision happened behind them, followed by shouts and screams of pain, explosions, and loud swearing. "Is everyone okay?" asked Akatani. As he received affirmative responses from his teammates, Midnight's voice cut through the air. "And time is up. Well done, everyone." Team Akatani sagged in relief, slowly breaking formation. "Man, that was wild," Kaminari remarked, idly checking his headband was still there. A quick look to Akatani showed his friend also still had his headband. "Indeed, a battlefield consumed by darkness and chaos," Tokoyami agreed, Dark Shadow nodding its head. "Hope this gets the sponsor's interest." Hatsum chirped, as she took off one of the boots and began tinkering it with a screwdriver she pulled from somewhere. "I'm sure they'll notice," Akatani replied offhandedly, ignoring the stares from both Todoroki and Bakugo. Midnight interrupted the team's chatter. "And now for the standings." The screen from before popped up, letters and numbers appearing in random before becoming intelligible. 1 STE Team Akatani. 2 ND Team Todoroki. RDE Team Bakugo. TH Team Shinso. Congrats to those on getting into the top 16. Midnight continued, "As for the rest of you, better luck next year, but no worries, there are plenty of other activities to keep you occupied for the rest of the day, am I right, Yamada?" "Indeed you are, Kayama." President Mike came over the air. "Before we move on to the last round, we have a 1-hour lunch break to let our top 16 competitors to recharge, and for everyone else to have fun and grab a bite to eat. Shoyuta, shall we grab lunch?" "Sure," came the tired reply. Kaminari was making the same proposal to Akatani. "Lunch?" "Yeah dash." Akatani. Both turned around. Todoroki had approached them out of nowhere. "Yes? Can I speak with you, privately?" Akatani blinked at the unexpected question. Kaminari's reaction was faster. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa," the electric blonde got between them, index finger raised and pushed into Todoroki's face. "Whoa. Just what are you planning to do with my boy?" Todoroki batted the finger aside, irritated. "It's none of your concern." "Oh, it's very much my concern, Candy Cane." Kaminari pushed the finger back into Todoroki's face. "You'd think I'm just gonna let you take my boy someplace quiet where no one can see what you're planning to do to him?" The dual quirk student looked ready to lose his cool. "I just want to dash." All right, enough." Akatani intervened just before the situation got out of hand. "Kaminari, it's fine. I am more than capable of defending myself if Todoroki's intentions are less than noble. Why don't you go ahead first and grab something for the both of us? And the power banks from my locker. You know the combination." Under his firm gaze, the blonde relented. But he didn't part without a final warning to Todoroki, giving him a "I'm watching you" gesture as he left. Akatani sighed. "Sorry about that, lead the way, Todoroki." Short while later, Akatani found himself in some quiet corridor next to an obscure exit somewhere far away from the main hub of activity. "What is it you wanted to talk about?" They leaned against the opposite walls, facing one another. Akatani had his hands in his pockets, waiting for an answer. Todoroki continued to glare at Akatani as if he had just insulted his mother, which he hasn't. I've been observing you and Kaminari for a while now. Akatani would be lying if he wasn't a little unnerved by that. You both have similar quirks, and despite such differing personalities, you two get along really well, while you have been relatively distant to everyone else. And you aren't? Akatani raised an eyebrow. With what I observed, I need you to clarify something for me, Todoroki continued. Are you and Kaminari brothers separated at birth? Honestly, that was unexpected. Akatani had no idea where Todoroki had come up with that conclusion. But he didn't let his confusion show. No, we aren't, he replied simply. Well, Todoroki pushed ahead, are you two dating then? That got a bit more of a reaction out of Akatani, albeit still inwardly. Dating Kaminari? He would like that, to be honest. It wasn't his obligation to tell that to Todoroki though. No, we aren't dating either. Though I very much wish we were, he inwardly added as an afterthought. Todoroki continued unfazed, either way, you two share a very deep connection. And is this what you wanted to speak to me privately about? Akatani narrowed his eyes, because I am getting hungry, and I need to recharge before the last round. You're eating into the lunch break. Todoroki frowned even further than he already was. I don't know if you made Kaminari do it during the cavalry battle, but he made me almost break my pledge. What pledge? Todoroki stared down at his left hand, to never use his fire. Akatani's eyebrow was again raised. I'm going to need some context here, Todoroki. Do you know Endeavor, the flame hero? Number 2 in the rankings? He's your father, isn't it? The purple-haired teen knew who Endeavor was. He was no doubt a pro hero, but his overall image as a person was something to be extremely desired. Father is putting things generously, Todoroki scowled. He is ambitious, arrogant, and he strives for the top spot. Reminds me of a certain someone, Akatani muttered to himself. He was never able to clinch the title of number 1, because of All Might. The symbol of peace, to this day, is a blow to that bastard's ego and pride. He will stop at nothing to overthrow All Might, any way possible. I'm not quite sure where you're going with this, Todoroki. The dual quirk student stared dead straight at him. Have you heard of quirk marriages? Akatani's stomach dropped. If what Todoroki was implying with that taboo subject with his father. No, he couldn't. He's the number 2 hero. Surely he wouldn't break the law that has been in place for over 5 decades meant to protect the vulnerable from being forced into marriages against their will, right? In his goal to surpass All Might, Endeavor desired the perfect heir. A quirk that would complement his fire, Todoroki continued, clenching his left fist. When he heard about my mother's ice quirk, he paid her family for her hand in marriage. A large sum, so much so that her family was immediately sold on the proposal and pushed her into the bastard's control. Akatani didn't know who to direct his growing disgust at. Probably both would be the sensible choice. He sired 4 children with her, me being the latest. The first 3 did not have the balance he wanted, so he casted them aside, as rejects. Then I came along, and my quirk manifested. Todoroki closed his eyes. Endeavor finally had his perfect heir, his masterpiece to overthrow All Might. From the moment my quirk came in, I was to be trained by him to surpass All Might, to become the perfect weapon. The dual quirk student's already closed eyes tightened. Akatani swallowed, unnerved by what he heard so far. I don't remember much from those training sessions, since that bastard beat me up black and blue until I was unconscious, Todoroki admitted, much to Akatani's inner horror. My mother tried to intervene, but he always raised his hand on her. My memories of her always show her screaming and crying, especially when that bastard used his quirk on her. Akatani felt he was going to be sick. She wasn't the only one. My siblings tried to intervene at times, but they all earned his wrath too. Natsuo had enough and moved out when he started high school. Tuya, he. Todoroki's body shook momentarily. What happened? Asked Akatani lowly. He was the one who tried the most to intervene, after my mother. Endeavor's wrath was arguably the worst towards him of all his children. The bastard burned him so badly, I don't even have a clear picture of what he looks like in my memory anymore. One day, he just disappeared. Ran away? I don't know. Endeavor said that he died, to us and to the press whenever they got suspicious. For years I hoped that wasn't true, that Tuya was still alive, somewhere out there. I didn't want to believe the bastard's words. Akatani needed to confirm something. This Tuya, is he the eldest? Todoroki wordlessly nodded. Akatani filed the information into his mind. He had a strange feeling that Tuya was going to pop up again sometime in the future. But more pressing now was the current conversation he is currently having with the youngest Todoroki child, for he appeared to be far from done. There's more to the story, isn't there? Todoroki continued. Tuya and Natsuo were the first to break. My mother, she lost it not too long after. Akatani remained silent. Endeavor's abuse shattered her. I remember that day, she was in the kitchen, huddled over the stove, muttering to herself. I came in, asking her what's wrong. She turned to me, and I will never forget the look of absolute insanity in her eyes. She said, I despise your left side, your father's side, right before she poured boiling water over my left eye. Akatani started at this. That explained the scar. She was institutionalized immediately after by that bastard, right up to this very day. I haven't seen her since. Todoroki. From that very day, I made my pledge. The dual quirk student unfurled his clenched left fist, to never use my left side, his quirk. Today, I will show that bastard I will win with just my ice. I'll destroy his pride and ego further, I'll drive my rejection of him home once and for all. Todoroki released a shaky breath. Akatani stayed silent. My apologies for eating into the break. But you need to know my intentions before I beat you on the field later on. You are strong, but I will prove to everyone that my ice will be enough to clinch the first place. That's all I have to say. With that, Todoroki turned on his heel, and went back down the hallway where they had come from. Akatani was left alone, mind swimming in the aftermath of the literal bombshell that had just been dropped almost out of nowhere. He honestly didn't know what to think. So many chilling details all lumped together in one tragic and horrifying story. An entire cemetery's worth of skeletons hidden in the Todoroki household unearthed in a matter of several minutes. This was not something that he expected to have dumped upon him. He wasn't a fucking psychologist, damn it. Though what was expected, especially after what Todoroki said just before he left, was Akatani's reaction to his so-called pledge. Todoroki, you fucking idiot. Hey man, you're back, said Kaminari as Akatani approached the picnic bench he was sitting at. So what did Candy Cane have to say? Akatani did a heavy sit. It's not my place to reveal, but I can tell you it's some heavy shite you don't wish to hear over dinner. That bad, huh? Kaminari remarked, pushing over a bento box and 5 power banks. Here, you gotta eat and recharge. Thanks Kaminari. Akatani demolished the bento in minutes, no thanks to his hunger. He was just beginning to drain his first power bank of its electric supply when the conversation picked up again. What do you think the final round's gonna be? Asked Kaminari. Akatani let go of the USB cable, not too sure, but it's definitely something that is going to pit us against each other. It wouldn't make sense for them to group us into teams when we already did that during the last round. True that, Kaminari agreed. Akatani went back to his power bank, casually draining away the electric supply while ignoring the strange looks he was getting from other festival goers. You know, I've never actually recharged with a power bank before, Kaminari remarked seemingly from nowhere. Akatani had just finished the first power bank, and was getting to the second. Then where do you actually get your electricity from? Oh, you know, the regular power sources, outlets, and stuff like that, the blonde replied flippantly. So what? You go about sticking metal forks into power outlets with the switch on and electrocuting yourself to recharge? You have been doing it all this while, haven't you? Well, kind of. Kaminari rubbed the back of his head. And let me guess, your quirk manifested from the first time you thought it would be a fun idea to stick a fork into a power outlet? Why yes. Akatani sighed, you must have given your parents one hell of a heart attack when that happened. Yeah, not my brightest moment then, Kaminari conceded. Companionable silence befell the two friends. Anyway, you want to try the power bank? Asked Akatani. Really? Thanks. The purple-haired teen passed the power bank over to his friend, then helping himself to the third bank in the stack. The two friends drained the power supplies in silence, enjoying each other's company and watching the festival happen around them. 15 minutes later, all 5 power banks were drained of their electrical supplies. Akatani certainly felt a lot more energized now with the power circulating through his blood vessels into his core. We should head back, he said to Kaminari, the last round's gonna start in 10 minutes. Ah, okay. Gathering up the rubbish and drained power banks, the two friends headed back towards the stadium. As Akatani paused by a trash can to throw away the empty bento boxes, Kaminari caught sight of a couple standing by a drink stall. They were laughing, chatting away like nobody's business. The young man had a slushie in hand, taking a sip. Kaminari couldn't hear what was being said, but he did manage to catch the man offer his girlfriend a sip from the slushie. Ah, that's so cute, he thought to himself, watching the couple share the drink. Something clicked in his mind at that same moment. Akatani passed him the power bank he had been drinking from. And he took it and drained it fully. The USB cable had been in his friend's lips and mouth, and he went and put the same cable to his own lips. Kaminari's face exploded in red. Did I just share an indirect kiss with Akatani? Impervious to his skyrocketing emotions, the purple-haired teen called out to him, Kaminari, hurry up. We have to go. Coming. The blonde quickly caught up with his friend. Cutting through the throngs of people, Kaminari continued to swim in his thoughts, trying to push the blush out of his face. See, calm down, Denki, he didn't actually kiss you, it was just a friendly gesture, your mind is just toying with you. He glanced at his friend. Akatani was still a little shorter than him. But he could imagine that within their second year, the purple-haired teen would have shot up past him in height. His muscles would also become bigger and stronger, making clothes fit tightly around him. His mind did the rest. He imagined behind pushed against a wall outside of the classroom. The hallway was devoid of people, just him, and the person who pushed him into the wall, hands gripping his wrists tightly. Denki. Yellow eyes met blazing jade ones. Akatani towered over him, eyes boring into his very soul, royal purple curls cut short into a neat undercut. Whatever baby fat he had in cheeks were gone, leaving behind a strong jawline as sharp as a knife. The Lichtenberg scars further accentuated the smoldering, electrifying aura the taller male released in waves. Kaminari was intoxicated by the aura, head spinning, eyes dilated. His breathing hitched when Akatani leaned closer, breath fanning over his skin. You're mine, only mine. Akatani leaned in further, tongue poking out to lick Kaminari's lips. Just as the blonde's heart threatened to explode, Akatani closed the remaining distance, claiming his lips in a searing kiss. Hurricane of emotion swirled wildly in Kaminari, as they shared the kiss with ferocity that almost snapped their rational thought for pure animalistic, primal desire. Akatani's hands slowly released from the blonde's wrists, shifting upwards to interlock tightly with his hands. The kiss separated with a gasp of breath. Kaminari was almost gone, the sheer intensity clouding his mind. He was given no respite, however, as Akatani yanked his tie off and undid his shirt button in one fell swoop. Distracted, Kaminari didn't see Akatani dive down into his neck, biting hard. Loud moan echoed through the empty hallway. Walking ahead, Akatani hummed a tune, oblivious to his friend behind him. Around them, festival-goers watched them go, wondering why Kaminari had his arms wrapped around his head, red all over, body crackling with electricity, literal steam pouring out from his flushed ears, and muffling his own screams. Welcome back, dear listeners. I hope everyone had a great lunch break. Present Mike came over the air. The crowd cheers the affirmative. So before we begin with the last round of the sports festival, there has been some unforeseen changes that must be addressed first, President Mike continued. During the lunch break, we had a few withdrawals from 2 competitors who made it into the last round. Let's hear what they had to say. The screens in the stadium flickered into a video feed recorded earlier. In it was Ojiro and Midnight. Midnight Sensei, I would like to withdraw from the final round. Oh? Why is that, Ojiro-kun? You do know this is an opportunity that doesn't come often. I know, but I cannot in good faith continue with the tournament, Ojiro explained. During the second round, I was under the influence of someone's quirk. It isn't fair that while everyone else worked hard, I didn't give my all. So please, Midnight Sensei, let me withdraw so I can keep my conscience clear. Isham, you make a compelling case, Ojiro-kun. Very well, I'll let you withdraw from the tournament. Thank you so much, Midnight Sensei. The video feed paused, and President Mike came back over the air. Isn't that chivalrous, listeners? And our second competitor also had the same noble reason to withdraw. The feed switched to another video, this time featuring Midnight and a chubby student with ice blue hair, Shoten Irenjiki from Class 1B. His reason for pulling out mirrored that of Ojiro on the grounds of not doing his best and keeping a clear conscience. The video then flickered off from the screens. So there you have it, dear listeners, 2 empty spots, said President Mike. After deliberation between the teachers, we decided that Tetsu and Shiozaki Ibra from Class 1B will take the spots. And with that, for those of you who missed it earlier, here are the battle brackets. The screens flickered back to life again. Group A, Akatani Makumo vs Shinso Hitoshi. Group B, Todoroki Shuto vs Shiro Hanta. Group C, Shiozaki Ibara vs Kaminari Denki. Group D, Ida Tenya vs Hatsune Mei. Group E, Ashido Mina vs Aoyama Yuga. Group F, Yayorozu Momo vs Tokoyami Fumikage. Group G, Tetsu vs Kirishima Ijiru. Group H, Uraraka Ochako vs Bakugo Katsuki. Now without further ado, let's move on to the first battle. Akatani stood quietly behind the closed gate in the dim light, waiting for the doors to open, signaling the beginning of his battle against Shinso. He had only just returned to the Class 1 waiting room with Kaminari when the brackets for the final round were released. His battle was the first. The rest of the class, save for Bakugo and Todoroki, came up to wish him luck. Protocol meant that those not participating in the battle were supposed to go up to their class's designated seating areas to spectate the fight. Only the participant was allowed to wait in the waiting room until the time came to get ready. The class filed out of the room. But before he left with the others, Ojiro stayed behind to give Akatani advice on dealing with Shinso. His quirk is some kind of mind control quirk, the tailed student had said. I think it is voice activated. So whatever you do, do not respond to him. Akatani replayed his classmate's advice while he waited. He could hear President Mick's voice and the noise of the crowd, albeit inaudibly, through the metal. He hoped the battle will go smoothly. Then, the doors shuttered and pulled apart, opening the world to Akatani. Coming out of East Gate is the ace of the heroics course, and the god of Jade Lightning himself, Akatani Makumo. I wish Yamada-sensei wouldn't exaggerate things. Akatani thought to himself as he stepped onto the field towards the center circle amidst roars of the spectators. And coming out of the West Gate is the only general education department student to make it this far, Shinso Hitoshi. Oh, now he recognized the person whom the name belonged to. That same guy with gravity-defying hair and really bad eye bags who came with a declaration of war to their class 2 weeks when the sports festival was just announced. It's the battle of the purple hair, so let's hope for an entertaining fight. Take it away, Midnight. Thanks Mike, the R-rated heroine replied. Now, I want a fair, clean match. Begin. Akatani braced himself, as Shinso began speaking. So I see we meet again, Mr. Vice Class President. You seem pretty confident about winning this match. I never even thought of that. What is he suggesting? Shinso continued, then again, I don't blame you. You have a flashy quirk, a powerful one no less, one that can take on villains like they're nothing. One perfect for a hero. I can sense the sarcasm, he's trying to get a rise out of me. Yet you and your class seem to easily forget those who have no such luck. Those with villainous quirks who are treated worse than garbage because of who they are. Who often want to do good like you lot, but are automatically assumed to be villains and cast aside. Akatani took a step forward, still remaining silent. Though, that's not to say you lot don't have your fair share of bad apples, like that explosive, egotistic bastard, that grape-headed baby, or... Shinso smirked. That useless blithering idiot, Kaminari, I presume? The one who can only electrocute himself and turn into a mindless fool making weird noises? Akatani's temper cracked, then exploded. He raised a fist. What did you call Kaminari, you motherfucking son of a bit dash? Akatani suddenly went rigid. His snarl melting off his face and his eyes losing their color. His raised fist fell limply to his side. Shinsa's smirk became even more smug. You heroic students are so stupid, always jumping ahead without thinking. Now, turn around and walk yourself out of bounds. Right on cue, as if listening to Shinso's command, Akatani wordlessly turned on his heel and began walking the opposite direction towards the boundary line.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.